And as you guys can see, Jarvis and I are thoroughly shocked at how the Chargers are 3-point favorites when aren't they playing this game in the bins with a team that just
Yes.
keeps figuring
Mhm.
out ways to win?
Right.
And
Yeah. Figure it out.
also
Yeah.
a team whose true co-brand co-builders Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith made what I believe were some solid moves. One was a surprise, but still I don't say it's a bad move with what they could potentially get, right? So
Right.
all eyes were on Flowery Branch on Tuesday to see if the Falcons were going to make any moves ahead of the NFL trade deadline, which of course was 4 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. Now we get all the way through the afternoon, and then all of a sudden it starts the flurry
You start
for all of
running.
the teams, right? And so you're checking it
Yeah.
out, and then you see a little flurry for the Falcons. You see that the Falcons actually went and did a little something. We know that they needed some help at corner, so they went out and got Rashad Fenton from the
Hmm.
Chiefs. And we also know that, well, this was a little bit interesting, so I definitely want to hear your take on that. Yes, Dean Marlowe did some questionable things at safety, but hey, I mean,
To say the least.
right. But we know also, but hey, dude might be winning because he's on his way to Buffalo. But that could also indicate for us that Jalen Hawkins is maybe on his way back. And then this was a little bit of a surprise. We knew that the Falcons, well, we pretty much knew that the Falcons would probably move on from Cal Ridley. But of course, I think most of us thought they would move on from Rid at the end of the season. But in a little twist, they decided to send him over to the Jaguars because they could potentially have as high as a second round pick in the 2024 draft. There's, some conditional picks there. So
Right.
let's break that down. Let's go first with Rashad Fenton because you and I both said that we thought no move or a minor move would be perfectly okay, especially if it was a veteran corner. And so they get Rashad Fenton from the Chiefs. Feels like a solid move to me.
No doubt about it, and it was a smart move because you taking a look at your roster and the
Mhm.
guys that you have playing, the guys who are getting playing time right now as guys are out, and I think that corner was definitely a position of need, right?
Yes.
If for the right fit, and I
Hmm.
think that Rashad Fenton is that guy. He's a guy who's a veteran in the NFL. He's a
Yes.
guy that has had, I think he had 5 starts this year,
Hmm.
and he's a guy that a lot of people say, okay, so why are they getting rid of this guy? So I started doing a little research. So Kansas City has a lot of young guys that
Yes.
are playing this year that
Yep.
they really like. So and they want to get those guys more playing time. So
Right.
Rashad Fenton was the last man out, right? So first man
Yep.
in, last man out. So I think that that's one of the things that you have to pay attention to when teams make these deals. And I think
Hmm.
that it mutually benefited both teams. So
Hmm.
when you have a guy like Fenton coming in, he's a guy that you can go in and you can start and say, hey, I know what I'm getting with this guy, and
Hmm.
he's a guy that can come in and play some different type of schemes for you for as far as DNPs go, because we know he likes to play multiple, likes to play man, likes to play zone. Now Fenton struggles in the zone, I mean, in the man a little bit, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of there are other guys that struggle in that department as well on this team. So I think DNPs will find a way for him to make fit and be a solid contributor to this defense.
And of course, Dean Marlowe, we are looking at the back of his jersey because he's headed out the door and to the Bills. But we saw a lot of the back of his jersey when really we should have seen the front of his jersey because we should have seen his head turn around to try to defend the ball.
Right.
Unfortunately, we didn't see that enough this fall. So he is headed up north. But again, I can see where that move would have been made. And I think that was a solid move as well. I don't think the Falcons lost anything there.
Yeah, not at all. And as far as Calvin really goes, I think
Yes.
that that's the thing that this is another a deal that I think that was mutually
Yes.
beneficial because
Agreed.
a lot of people were trying to complain about all the compensation and all these conditional picks,
Mm,
but I was like, look at the situation. Look at
yeah.
it. This is a very unique situation. The man has been suspended for gambling. You don't know what
Right.
Roger Goodell feels are and whether or not he's going to immediately reinstate him. So Jaguars had to put language in that particular deal so they can cover themselves,
Hmm.
and so did the Falcons as well. So they did that. So hey, if because it's in the 2023 draft, it can
Hmm.
be up to a 5th round pick.
Right.
The reason why it's low because they have to pay $11 million.
Yep. Mhm.
They have to pay their $11 million salary, and I think that if he's able to get reinstated by a certain date, it's going to be a
Mhm.
5th round pick.
Yes.
Cool, that's fine. And then
Mhm.
the following year, if he balls out, we
Yeah.
all know Cal is healthy. He's going to
He's
ball,
going to
especially if he's in a
exactly.
mental place because he's at
Yes.
home. He's in
Mhm.
Florida. You know, he's from Fort Lauderdale, but he up in Duval. So hey, them folks rock with each other. So from time to time, I think they'll be able to come together and root for that guy in his home state. So I think, and then that second round pick, it turns into a second round pick that if they're able to re-sign him to a long-term deal. So it works out. If everything works out, both sides get what they want, and I think that the Falcons will be perfectly fine. Kudos to Terry Fontenot for making smart moves yesterday.
Yeah, I would agree. And there are so many times and so many different situations where we all scratch our heads and say, my goodness, we didn't get anything for that player, Matt Ryan. So when you think about the position that Terry Fontenot was in at the beginning of this season, where really he was kind of hamstrung and was trying to get out of that Matt Ryan contract and, you know, kind of move him on. And then you fast forward to where we are about midway through the season, and he's able to broker a deal like this. And it's all of the little moves in between, right? All of the little things that he's done to kind of offset and give himself some space with the salary cap and just move on for players and from players and not just say, hey, I'm going to hang on to him for the sake of hanging on. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And we move forward. And again, we all knew Riddle was gone. It's just that we didn't anticipate that he'd be gone this soon, but it is what it is. And I think that this roster's rounding out. And again, I heard a few people kind of sigh and say, dang, sure would have been nice to get Bradley Chubb. Sigh, sure would have been nice and is nice that you don't get that contract because guess what? Whoever signs them, Dolphins, they are literally probably were at the table saying, hey, we need to talk to this guy about exactly talk to this guy about
come on now.
And that's just not a situation that the Falcons maybe wanted to find themselves in. So again, if you were somebody who felt like they needed to do something big, I don't necessarily agree with that because the Dolphins are in a different situation. They are vying for a competitive AFC title, right? An AFC
like Super Bowl. They're trying to get to the Super Bowl. Yeah, that could legit.
Up against it with the Buffalo Bills, whereas this is actually a more manageable division win for the Falcons. If you compare them to the rest of their division, they're not that far off. So why give up that much capital when you simply do not have to? And another thing that you don't really have to do is not watch Locked On Atlanta Sports. Why? Because we're great. And so, of course, you want to watch us, right? That's actually something you should do. And you know what? Jarvis and I actually think that the guys up in Flowery Branch, they probably pay attention to us and pretty much everyone on the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. So again, do like the Falcons do and listen to us. But of course, your next listen should be to check out Locked On Sports, the podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day. And you have to know that not just yesterday, but today and probably for the rest of the week, they're going to be reacting to some of these bombshell monster trades that have gone on in the last, not just 24 hours, but even the days leading up to the trade deadline. They're going to give instant reaction. And then, of course, big game recaps. So whether that's a Sunday game or a Monday game, you're going to hear it from these guys talking about the biggest and the best in the league. And they have their own version of For the Culture. They actually call it Take of the Day. And so that crew is going to give you all their thoughts about what has gone on in the day you watch. So that's available just like we are on the Odyssey app, over on YouTube, and of course, wherever you guys download your podcast. So don't forget, after ATL Day One's next up, Locked On Today.